This boundary here for about 50 years was used solely for corn and hay production. And this is a karst region, which means everything below us is caves. So the topography of this farm is changing yearly, which gives us a lot of things to work on with different outcomes every year. And when I really started needing more space to finish my cattle and to raise them, I fenced this boundary, which had never been fenced and closed in since 1930 or before. And our fencing work were projects and programs through the NRCS and USDA, and we did some water development up on the hill. And this boundary is pretty much used for my winter feeding. And the reason I do that is so that I use my cattle as my fertilizing system. It's close to the barn. I always bring my young calves in here. My weaned calves start out at the barn, and then they come in here, and they'll spend the winter here. They have about 70 acres. My goal is to cross fence this and then to move my fence. But if I use it for my feeding area, I have a bit of control over where my animals are. So this is a feed zone to go. And I buy my calves from 2 farms, my son-in-law and daughter, and then another farm in Max Welton. I'm very familiar with the genetics of these calves. I'm not in the calf business, I'm in the beef business, so it's really important to me what they are going to be when they're 28 to 33 months old. And that's about the time period it takes for me to get them fat. And my idea of fat is a 1,500 pound steer when it goes to slaughter. And I guess that's one thing for people to think about is what is your goal, what is your market, where are you going with this? These calves all get worked in the spring. These are approximately sort of 480 to 520 in weight. I bought them as a group on an average of 508 pounds. These calves all get worked in the spring. They're either banded or castrated, depending on which farm it is. I am a huge advocate of vaccinating and worming protocol. These troughs I start the calves when they get in here off their moms. They're obviously going to be a bit stressed. I keep them together as a group, and I will put them on a feed supplement of alfalfa and peanuts and cottonseed and molasses, just to give them something to go on until they sort of get their lives sorted out after being taken away from their mothers. That is a critical time where people have got to be really careful how they treat these youngsters, because that's when they're very predisposed to have some health issues. After they've settled in here, I keep them in smaller lots with plenty of feed in front of them, plenty of hay, plenty of clean water and mineral. About 2 weeks into that, we work them again, and we revaccinate, and we give them vaccine for respiratory issues, for blackleg. Everybody gets wormed again. And by then, they're very quiet. These are quiet calves anyway, and they come out here, and as you can see, they're just hanging out. It's what we like. If I see a head throw up in the air in high years, you're probably going to go live someplace else, because I don't work my cattle with ATVs, don't own a shocker prod, I don't chase cattle, they follow me. So that's how I like it. I like to throw a gate open and call, and they come running to me. I don't believe in running behind them. That's a waste of time. So yeah, these youngsters will be here, and in a few minutes we'll go up and see what the final goal is. This is the first year I've had Herefords here of my own, and we really haven't had Herefords on this farm since about 1980, but that's what made this farm pretty famous when it was Morlunda Farms, and we used to show our cattle all over the United States and sold cattle to South Africa and Brazil. We went from horn Herefords to polled Herefords in 1963-64 and bought some big cattle out of Canada and Saskatchewan. So I've spent my entire life showing cattle, feeding cattle, grading cattle, eating cattle. And so that helps me have a little leg up because I have confidence in it. For people that are just starting out with cattle, I would really suggest starting small and always keep it comfortable and keep it safe. Calm cattle are what you want, and crazy cattle are kind of like crazy people. Somebody's going to get hurt. So just be sensible about it. My goal for these guys, and we've reached that through our forage program here and improved soils, obviously. If you don't have good soil, you're probably not going to have good grass. And grass is the main ingredient. I learned a lot from the Savory Institute and also from Jim Garish, and it sort of helped me turn my head around and let the cattle be the machines that we're going to replenish and regenerate this property. And the end result is then we have a byproduct to sell. So, but without good grass and good dirt, you're not going to have healthy, fat cattle. If you don't have good ground and you don't have good grass, I do not advocate going in the finished beef business. That's going to be very costly, but you can use these animals to build your ground up and go forward. If you're not already in the business and you're thinking about going in, or you're in it and you think you might need to make some changes, there are a lot of different ways to approach being in the beef business. You can run a cow-calf operation, or you can do what I do and buy weaned calves. I bred horses for years and have had children, so I'm kind of out of the maternity business. I do most of this on my own. So having calves works really well for me. If you're going to buy calves, you really need to know where they're coming from. Figure out what works best for your budget and what's going to help you become more successful at what you're doing. This is about dollars and cents, but it's also a lot about common sense and reaching out to people that help me, to learn things that I need to know to be more successful in what I'm doing. These are yearling steers, and what we've done, where I segued off earlier with the other group, what I learned from Jim Garish was to really knock a winter off of holding steers over, so that I wouldn't have more than 2 winters in these calves, which we've accomplished, and I'm really excited about it. The next group we'll see are a year older than these, so I usually have 3 age groups going. But with what we're doing and the increased forages, we're really starting to catch up and surpass. So we have literally carved a whole winter of care and feed off of these steers, so we're getting them into slaughter a lot earlier, and that's without feed. I really want quiet steers to work around. When they do get that next year on them, they change psychologically a little bit. When they get big, they'll start to challenge, and that's where I'm really careful who goes first. But it's not a matter to me of, okay, it's October 15th, I'm taking 20 to slaughter. Nobody around here can take 20 to slaughter. I don't have any place to store 20, but they're not all ready at the same time. Depending on what the winter's like, what our fall's like, it'll predict how far I can slaughter into the spring. These guys won't get slaughtered till next year. I've got some ahead of them that have to go next. If you're in the business like I am of slaughtering cattle and selling meat, we use 2 processors. They're both in Virginia. They're both USDA. One we drive a little bit farther for, but they're certified organic, and that helps us with certain labeling needs. And also it's just knowing your market. A lot of people don't know the difference in cost and expense, and there's all the sort of things on the business side that are really important to wrap your head around, because hauling your animal is not a cost, it's an expense. And what your animal is, and if you're depreciating, all of that has really taught me how important it is to work with an accountant that knows what in the world you're doing. A lot of us have missed a lot of opportunity working with accountants that don't understand what our business is. And in terms of a business plan, my business plan changes seasonally because nature kind of dictates that. But our bottom line, customers and their demands this year, our restaurant customers, it really clobbered them. They couldn't have people in there eating in the restaurants, but our purchasing customers and retail tripled. But then all of a sudden, could our processors take more steers based on our demand? And they were overloaded. And so getting more slaughter dates was an impossibility. So it was a real juggling act, but it's worked, and everybody's worked really well together. And I think that's helped the country really turn its head to seeing how local food production can really feed our more rural areas, not our huge metropolitan areas, but it certainly has fed a lot of people that were not dependent on it before. The vaccine program and protocol that we discussed, I really stick to, and keeping them wormed. When they get closer to slaughter, obviously we're not giving vaccinations, and that final year they're not getting wormed. We sell everything USDA. We do sell some animals for households, but I just across the board do everything USDA. Reg-wise, it keeps life a lot simpler. There is a difference in there again what your market is and where you're going to sell it, if it's a West Virginia inspected product or a USDA inspected product. If your animals are healthy, they're not hopefully going to get sick. And there are certain things you do to understand that. One is always to be ahead of it. Don't wait until it gets bad. I feel that mud is a huge stressor on them, but it's also a pretty unhealthy place to have to live if you put yourself in that own situation. We've had a really hot fall. It was cool to begin with. These guys plumped up their winter coat, but they can't unzip it and take it off when it's 80 degrees in November. So they need shade, and they need to get out of it because I don't want them to get stressed, and I don't want them to lose weight. I don't want them to get sick. The fluctuating temperatures the other night with these little calves, it's 80 degrees in the day and it's 30 degrees at night. So that's a lot for them to accommodate for with the change of diet and lifestyle. It's just another stressor. So just really be aware of the things that are stressing your animals. If I have a steer that isn't filling in that way proportionately and there's not much of him behind, that's telling me that frame, as the steer gets bigger, he's going to get uncomfortable. He's probably going to have pain in his pelvis, and he's going to start to lose weight. So that steer's going to go and move on. When I'd like to see him a little bigger, I'm already past the curve on it. So you just have to look at him and know what your end result is, and find your market and know who's buying your animals. I mean, I've been doing this for well over a decade plus. And I learn something new almost every day. But it's definitely grown, and I really believe it's out there for everybody. We were all doing this. We still couldn't feed everyone in West Virginia. So there's plenty of room for everybody to be involved in this. Grass-finished beef is like craft beer. No two are alike. The grass is different everywhere. The water's different. The dirt's different. The animals are different. And that's what gives Europe this great, flair for their cheeses and their wines and their beef, and all of that is the influence. It's just in this country we're just stubborn about acknowledging yes, my beef in the Greenbrier Valley is probably going to be a little bit different than beef in Putnam County. But they're both good. They're just different. And that gives us all a lot of variety to choose from. So, this group of steers, there are two. And this is my current slaughter group. So we, to one facility, take 2 every 2 weeks, and the other facility we take 4 once a month. But we're rolling through 8 steers a month right now. And I typically have learned not to slaughter mid-January until the grass comes back. If I'm lucky, I can slaughter to the 1st of February, but that fat cap is essential. We're very lucky to have a facility that is set up properly to hang, and we're adding an aging component to our business. So we bring our pommels in whole, and we're cutting them in our shop now. So we've got more quality control and more flexibility in what we can offer our customers, which has really been fun. So, and we have about 50 different farms in our store. So we've got lamb, pork, rabbit, poultry, turkeys, ducks, eggs, and then we bring in fresh seafood 3 days a week, so that helps get more people in. But these boys will carry us through the winter and into the spring, and then we'll move to the next group. Here we are at the final stop for those lovely steers you saw earlier. In the case, we've got our primals that we cut for our customers, and please feel free to stop in and have a taste of Swift Level.